Hi, this is Amy from Glitter Meets Glue. Today I'd like to show you how you can use markers to paint on a budget in your classroom. I'll walk you through selecting the most suitable materials, as well as demonstrate some tips and tricks in using them. This marker painting technique is used to create many of the projects in my art game series. Students enjoy making them, and teachers love the low-prep, fuss-free fun their students are having. Let's get started. Let's take a look at the materials you'll use to create your marker paintings. First up are brushes. You'll want to select thin, round, synthetic brushes. These are also called Taklon brushes. They are stronger, they hold up better to abuse compared to their natural bristle brush counterparts. Let's take a look at these two compared side by side. The shape of the brush and the size of the brush matter. When you're painting smaller areas, you need a smaller brush, and you also need one with a finer point, such as this synthetic brush has. Now let's look at the paper you'll use. 90-pound extra white sulfite paper is what I use in my classroom. I really like this paper because it's got great body and strength, but also it's really economical. I can buy a ream of this paper and it will last months and months and months in my art room. You could also use 90-pound student-grade lightweight watercolor paper, even up to 140-pound watercolor paper, and this is great, but it's truly not necessary. The one advantage that this paper has over the extra white sulfite paper is that it's really great for blending. The downside is that it costs more. I'm going to do a little side-by-side comparison so you can kind of get a sense of what these two papers do. I'm going to put down some marker on both. And I'm going to take, in this case, a large brush. I'm going to dip it in the water, blend it right into the marker, and you'll see when I pull away that the marker transfers to a lighter version of itself on other parts of the paper. Let's compare it on the watercolor paper. When I start to blend and pull the brush down, you'll see that it's creating a more smooth transition between where the ink of the marker was and where I've blended it out to. It's just truly a nicer experience when painting. Again, I really use this extra white sulfate paper in my classroom, and it's perfectly fine for a lot of projects. Whatever you do, do not use manila or construction paper. Those papers are not meant to accept wet media, such as markers with water, or even acrylic paints or tempera paints. Now let's take a closer look at the markers you'll use for your marker paintings. You want to select children's washable markers. The regular markers work okay, and I've had okay results with them, but the washable markers will blend out better. Some brands have colors that are more bold than others. I've tested out off brands, and I've found them to not be as good as the more expensive brands, truly, but they still work, and you can totally use them. You should also have some fun with some glitter markers, because who doesn't love a little glitter? You can put down a glitter marker and add a little water to it, and you'll see that not only will it pick up some of the ink, but also some of the glitter. Works okay. Whatever you do, do not use permanent markers. Permanent markers on either surface, whether it be the extra white sulfite paper or the watercolor paper, will not blend. And that's because the ink bleeds right into the surface of the paper, and there's no ink left to push around. Now that we've discussed the materials you'll use, let's talk about drawing, coloring, and painting. When you draw shapes, you want to make them large. And when you create lines, make sure you space them out. This will make it easier to color. Another technique that I use with my students is I have them draw a difficult shape on a little scrap piece of manila or tag board and then cut it out. They can use this as a tracer for when they're trying to fill in pattern shapes. Just makes it easier for them to figure out where the pattern can go in their design. And then lastly, another technique that I use with my students is to create a tracer. I'll have them take a scrap piece of paper and draw the line on the paper dark and heavy, flip it over, and transfer the design just by scratching with their pencil on the backside. This doesn't have to be done neatly because the only part that transfers is the part with the design on the opposite side. Anything that's extra you can always erase quite easily because you'll see when I pull it off, the design is just done really lightly. Some students prefer to go over it a second time just so that it really stands out. Now let's talk about coloring your design. When you color, use the side of the marker to create more bold strokes of marker. This will make it easier when you go to paint. Also, be sure to outline any areas in your design that are not shapes. In other words, the background. This will make it so you have a color back there. Now, you'll see that I'm going to go up and around the edge of all of these candy corn shapes. That will all be pink. But when I move on to the actual candy corns, I'm going to make them orange, 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 and also yellow. Those will be the colors on the inside. When you're ready to start painting, you'll want to dab your brush on a paper towel so that you don't have too much water on it. And all you have to do is to just push the brush back and forth and it will fill in the areas. Your brush should be damp, but not soaking wet. When you run out, just get a little more water, dab it, and keep moving along. Another tip that's helpful when working with your students is to encourage them to paint all the similar colored areas at the same time, because it will make it easier to transfer the same colors to different places. And that way they don't have to keep wiping off of their brush really well. Another technique that I like to use, and that's also a lot of fun, is using an old CD or even a piece of cellophane to put some color down. So you'll see I'm just going to take my marker, put some marker strokes down on it, and it's going to act like a little miniature paint palette. I'll just get a little water, blend right in there, and you'll see it will pick up that color, and I can actually paint with it. Now that you've seen how easy it is to paint with markers, I hope you'll try this in your own classroom. Check out my art and art history games in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. These interactive drawing projects lend themselves to more higher order thinking skills, enabling your students to learn and have fun simultaneously. You'll love how easy they are to implement and how awesome they look on your bulletin board. For more tips, tricks, and inspiration, visit my website at glittermeetsglue.com.